This is the MO Sessions podcast, where we talk about magic ways to become a better magician to be good to your magic. I'm your host, Benny Slade, and I couldn't be any more thrilled that you are here. Welcome back to another episode of the MO Sessions. My name is Benny Slade, and thank you for joining me for another episode on today's topic, which we're going to talk about magician David Blaine. David Blaine has been very inspiring for me through the years. There's such a big world that we can dive into with David Blaine. And what I'll start off by saying is that the influence he had on me it started from a very young age. The first time I was gifted for Hanukkah David Blaine's Street Magic DVD, or was it a VHS? It might have been a VHS. It was like maybe right after it came out or aired on TV. And I remember playing it, and my grandparents got it for me. And they said that they saw it on TV. This was a new magician. It was something they had never seen before, and that I would really like it, and they think he's going to be the future of magic, which my grandparents had seen magicians here and there, over the years through the 70s and the 80s. Probably even in the 60s. I never asked them. And it was really interesting being a very young kid. Probably like 6, 7, maybe even 8 years old. Seeing this dark-rimmed magician absolutely floor people on the street. Now, at that time, I was not very serious into magic. I had all the kits. I knew a handful of card tricks and was doing them very well, ambitious card and locator card effects and etc. So to see him do all these practical effects and turn them into miracles on the stage was really really interesting for me. So David Blaine was the beginning of a direction that I never thought I was going to go down, which I also thought was really interesting. It had taken me to, let me think. So I wanted to be David Blaine. I wanted to be exactly like David Blaine and be able to do all the effects. And I watched that DVD or video or whatever so many times that it stopped working, trying to learn how he did the ambitious card. And now I have hair spiking up at the top, and that looks ridiculous. How he did the ambitious card effect for Fruit Loops in front of a tattoo parlor. And I was like, I knew the handling for it, and then, oh, wait, we're putting a bend in it, and then boom, it's to the top was... To visually see it just threw me for a loop. Like, I just had no idea. And I watched it and watched it and watched it and watched it and finally figured it out. And I remember going to the Super Bowl, a Super Bowl party at my aunt and uncle's house in New Jersey. And I got there and I said, do you have... Everybody was watching the game and they were doing you place bets on, I guess gambling. I'll just put it that way. Sorry. It was bingo for the Super Bowl, essentially what it was. And I won that night. I won $200 that night. And my Uncle John, shout out to my Uncle John, who that inspired me to put a piece into the show that I'm working on right now, essentially, it was Slidini's going through the table. I didn't know it then. I found out many years later, and he loved doing it. And every time I just couldn't figure it out. I couldn't figure out how that was done. So, anyways, he did that, and then I was like, oh, I know a magic trick that I learned recently. It was featured on David Blaine's special, Street Magic, and I'm like trying to, I guess, promote it. I don't know. And do you have a deck of cards? And they, pick a card up to the top, up to the top, and they're like, you're just, it's obvious. I'm like, no, it's not. Watch this. And I put the bend the same way, he holds it from the front and puts the bend in it. And they see it go in the middle, and you put the other packet on top, and then you hold it, and it comes up to the top, and they see it pop, and everybody at their full freaked out. Just absolutely freaked out. And it was just so funny to just get the exact same reaction that David would get on his specials. So that was really funny. And through the years, like I saw the progression of David Blaine. Like my uncle and I have had other family members go see him in New York City when he was frozen in time, and he did the where he's on the box. What he does in his show now, he comes down on all the boxes. He jumps from the pillar all the way down. I've heard about, his 24 hours in the glass box. It was 24 or 48 hours in the glass box above UK. And seeing him be like Houdini and push himself more and more was always really fascinating towards me, and I've always respected him because it almost taps into like the old sideshow stuff, like the Georgia Wonder, like being that you can't pick me up and shifting your body weight and that whole thing. So, and recently I was revisiting some of the specials. It has been a couple years since I've seen the specials, and I watched them from beginning to the most recent, and you see his progression, and for what it's worth, I have to give him a lot of kudos on really taking magic seriously. And I'm just going to segue off really quick and say that there's another documentary out there which is available on Tubi. I suggest you go check it out because it's really interesting. It talks about street magic in New York City and features two magicians who are in an underserved area, and they're trying to be magicians, and they go to a magic shop. And I'm not going to name names, and because I think one of them is now kind of out there and doing his thing. But it's a really interesting perspective because at one point during, I feel like it was closer to the end and it goes through their journey, and they're getting frustrated that I don't know if it's that they're getting frustrated because they're not getting booked or they're not winning these competitions, or what the deal is, or life just keeps happening and they're getting put in the same situations. But there's a point in the documentary where they're getting frustrated because they're hearing about this other young magician on the street named David Blaine, who's doing incredible magic on the street. And it's really interesting because it's like they would go and like check out David Blaine on the street, and they would go and figure out where he was performing and just watch, just to see what he was doing. And out of that group, I'm not going to put David Blaine in that group with them, but out of that group, David Blaine was the one who got really successful and had a special and all this other stuff. So that it's just really interesting to kind of know the beginnings and the behind the scenes of like it, everybody's story is different, but that it was a struggle in the beginning to get out there. So sorry, I just thought that was a really interesting point of that documentary. I was like, not them mentioning a young David Blaine on the street and that's their competition. It was really interesting. What I really enjoyed about rewatching David Blaine's specials again was probably the fact that as you watch them and you see him grow and the thinking is different, and his teams are getting better. He has different teams behind the scenes. I want to say right around the time when Aussie came into the picture, um, his quality and magic went up a lot. Not that it was bad before, but this was like now he can, he's not hustling. Now he's always been hustling, but in a different way. He's not having to hustle, to get exposure. He's exposed. He's out there. He's doing this thing. Now it's he can reap the benefits and sit there and finally open up a book and continue to learn some more magic and practice and do his thing and ask his team what they think about it. I think that's what I appreciate the most about David Blaine is it went from like the Balducci levitation on street magic to a really good version of Out of This World in front of celebrities. Um, so that's really interesting to kind of see the progression. I've respected that. I've always respected the progression of any magician, but to see David Blaine kind of be out there. And what's interesting about it is it's not like Copperfield, where you're seeing Copperfield do his specials pretty much every year. You're seeing Copperfield do the Magic of David Copperfield 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5, 6, whatever. And then now he's doing a residency. And then the last one was kind of like, oh, now we see what he's going to be doing with his residency at MGM. And that's where he's been. And then he goes on tour and stuff like that. But with David Blaine, I really feel like you see him progress differently. Not only are you seeing him progress like with the magic and the effects, but you're seeing him progress in the endurance way. He wants to push himself. He wants to try the real impossible. My favorite thing with Real or Magic was introducing the ice pick to everybody and telling them, introducing it in a Monty style sort of situation. And seeing him go from that's a great, the last episode I talked about connecting effects. If you watch that, that is a great A to B situation because what you're watching is him go from taking the effect of finding the pick under the bags to then taking it and let's put it through my hand. And it's real. And so that's really interesting, taking a classic effect of magic. It's almost like what would have been interesting is if he did I don't know if he does it in any of his specials after that, he's doing a 3 card stab, Monty style, and then through the hand. Would have been really interesting to see 3 go together like that. And that would be the ice pick segment. But seeing the effects and also like as I'm progressing through magic through the years, I'm also understanding that the history behind it. I'll talk about some books after I'm done talking about this and things like that. But the books I'll show you historically are classics. They're important to have in every library. And yeah, I think it's one of those things that it's great. It's one of those things that historically seeing him perform Out of This World in a variation of Out of World is great. Not only is it great to see him perform like historically really great effects, I think culturally he has become, I guess one could say, celebrity or just really well known. But he really went from being just a magician who was doing street magic and everybody heard about him, and then he was going to see celebrities and high profile people and the president, and then working his way into talk shows through his whole career and being out there. I think culturally he's just as popular as a comedian like Dave Chappelle or a rapper or an athlete, and to take your magic to that level of status is amazing. Copperfield is different. Copperfield came at a great time when it was the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, early 2000s. He was out and about going to award shows, and I don't think David Blaine has been to any award shows. I haven't seen him at like the Emmys or anything like that. And you're talking about you're talking about specials, magic specials, but different types of magic, kind of sort of platform is different, right? Which, now that I think about it, I don't know how that works, but he should have been, like a docu-series sort of situation or a mini documentary. I don't know. Docu-special, I don't know. Should have gotten an Emmy for it, especially the last two. And then he's implementing Di Vernon into that as well is really interesting as well. Having segments of Di Vernon speaking and things like that. It was great. And culturally, yeah, like I said, I think it's really interesting to see someone ascend to that level, to where, I feel I have this idea of getting giant balloons, and we're gonna get YouTube, who's always been hot. YouTube is gonna be part of it, and top scientists are gonna be part of it, and I'm gonna do this thing and compile a team, and et cetera, et cetera. And I remember watching that and thinking to myself, anything is really possible. At this point, anything really is possible. And where we are in the world at this point, anything really is possible. So yeah, I just want to do a quick episode about David Blaine and how he really, in the beginning, really made a huge impact on my magic. And I knew the interesting thing about it is I knew from a young age like what was the hokey effects. Like there was some effects that are kind of hokey, and I mean, let's be honest about it. And then there were some effects that were really good. And wanting to be just like David in the sense of wanting to do the really good effects. So that's my episode on David Blaine. I do want to do some quick plugs. I want to thank Steve Reynolds, per usual. He's coming out with some great products. He has a great, if you're into Marlowe, if you're into magic, you should go check out SteveReynoldsMagic.com. But he does a lot of Marlowe, digging up Marlowe stuff and things like that. And one of the things he came out with was Primetime Marlowe. It came with a booklet and remastered with Rocker Bomber voiceover as well. Amazing. It was amazing. I highly recommend it. Go pick it up. Go find it. SteveReynoldsMagic.com. He also has vignettes at Tony's, which is... It's been a while since I've... you watch some of these Marlowe, like Confidential Marlowe, and, the Marlowe videos that are out there. The Secret Lecture that Vanishing Ink put out. And it's almost like the closest thing you'll get to having a one-on-one. Vignettes at Tony's is Steve Reynolds. It's the audio tape of Marlowe. And what you'll get is the audio tape along with video of Steve going through the effects. And that's kind of been his format recently, is audio with some video explaining, and then as well as the book, which has stories in it. And it's amazing. Go check it out, SteveReynoldsMagic.com. Want to give a shout out to, I'm not paid. This isn't any sort of like, if you want to sponsor me, we can talk about that. I'm not baiting for it. But Don's Magic Books, there has been so many great books coming through his website that if you see it, get it. Just make sure what you're buying first, just like any other bookseller. I think I have an episode on that. I don't know, somewhere. It might be already posted. If not, I'll have to go through my files and see if I can find the complete episode. But Don's Magic Books. Amazing website, just like Quicker Than the Eye. They always come up with some quality stuff. Go check it out. Go buy. Absolutely. And sometimes every now and then you'll find something really rare on there, and scoop it up and buy it for sure. Actually, I'll mention before I go on to this next mention, I'll say that I've made a rule for myself now with books. Just as long as I'm financially capable of doing it, I would never put you in a position where if you can't afford it, still do it. If you can afford it, do it. But if you see something that's rare, book wise, effect wise, whatever it is, get it. That's it. Just get it. Just do it. You'll thank yourself when it goes on the secondhand market for like $4,000. Not that you would sell it. I have a working library, so all my books they stay on the shelves and I read them and I practice them and they're resources for me. I wrote down a note here. I can't even read my own handwriting. Thank you to all the people who have helped me build my library over the past few months. You know who you are. I respect your privacy, so I don't want to name names, but you know who you are. I appreciate you holding books, putting books on, the side for me. There's been handshakes made with some certain books and things like that. Thank you so, so much. Because as I'm building my show, what's happened in the past few months, like I just mentioned before, a lot of these books are gone. There's no more on eBay. There's no more on Don's. There's no more on Quicker. There's no more. Shout out to my really good friend Chad as well, who's always been like really good about like, hey, it's up, go check it out, go buy it, and vice versa. With some really hard books. So thank you to everybody who's been helping me continue to build my library. It's great. So what's coming up with the dope? Well, let me backtrack because I just said that wrong. What's coming up with the MO sessions? I kind of leaked it. I didn't leak it. I mentioned it early. The dope is coming back. The dope is coming back, and it's going to be in a physical form. I've been wanting since the beginning. I just couldn't do it during the pandemic. The dope was a publication that I was doing too quickly, too soon, too fast. But I had a lot of great contributors on it. I had let me go through the names. I had my best friend in Magic, Chad Kidd, contributed. Alex Boyce contributed. Hairpin Ong contributed. Michael Vincent contributed. A great magician out of Ohio named Casey Lewis contributed. There's a magician who I'm trying to track down. I don't know where he's from, but his name is Mert Eller, I believe. Contributed a great article on one of the issues. Mert, if you're listening or if you are hearing this or someone's sending this to you, please email me. If anyone listening wants to get in contact with me directly, it is mosessionpod@gmail.com. That's mosessionpod@gmail.com. You can email me whatever. If you want to come on the podcast, if you want to be a contributor for a future issue of the Dope, we can definitely talk about that. Or if you just want to say hello and let me know you like the podcast or whatever, please, anything. Trying to think what else. So this new platform is kind of different. I'm doing it different. It's now video and it's audio with the podcast. So we'll talk about a little bit real quickly about what's going on here. So we are on Spotify mainly only because I can do Q&A with you guys. I can do polls with you guys. You guys can leave me comments on my podcast page where you go to listen. I can see them and respond back. As well as if I decide to take it as far again to where you guys are interested in doing subscriptions, I can have exclusive content on there. I haven't really thought about diving back into that yet, but it is an interesting space that I'm kind of thinking about because I could talk about what I'm reading and some effects that I'm seeing and things I'm working on, I can share it exclusively behind a paywall. Um, and possibly even go into, it can grow very quickly. It can go into like a membership where we're having lectures and things like that. One of my great friends in Magic, Shane Cobalt, has a fantastic, I'll shout him out, check out his dobettermagic.com. That explains it. Do Better Magic. I don't think I need to explain what's on there. No, but he has great articles and essays that he writes on there. Fantastic lectures. The last one I think I checked out, it's been a while, but the last ones I checked out were like Jared Koff, Paul B. Hill, and those guys, he has them come do like workshops and stuff like that, which are amazing. Alex Boyce, a lot. There's a lot of people he has on there. And then Derek Chung has a great one through Ko-Fi, I think it is. I think it's called Deceptive something. Derek, I'm sorry if I butchered that. Check that out. That's also really great. Sometimes they'll do joint events together, which is really great. But yeah, so Spotify is where we're hosting everything and kind of gives me a little bit more transparency with you guys as listeners to make this feel more personal, which I do want it to be. I want you to email me and contact me and, you know, make suggestions and things like that. When I first started this, I had, I don't know if I started with a Patreon or what it was, but it grew very quickly. And to all those original people who were listening and everything, thank you so much. I appreciate it. During a time when we were all stuck at home doing absolutely nothing for a year, I was doing a lot of magic. And, it's funny, I had an effect because I was working on an effect and I couldn't figure out how. I had moved, I changed homes twice, and all my magic stuff was packed away. This is the first time all of my books are out. We have more than enough space to put everything out. And I remember I was working on an effect back during the pandemic, and it was an oil and water, and it was great. And I was sharing it with people, and it did really well. And I got it off of a video that I saw, and I had broken it up or whatever. And one of the people from the original, they were a subscriber to the podcast and a member. I reconnected with them within the last year, and they said, "How are you? What's new?" And I said, "Good, working on the podcast again." And do you remember that effect I did, oil and water? Do you know anything about? Because I couldn't remember how I did it or what it. I have no video of it, and we had workshopped it and played with it, and like that, it just came right back as soon as we were going through some of the handling, and I was like, "That's right, that's such a great oil and water." So, yeah, thank you so much for listening and tuning in. Still messing with these 21 Club, Diamondback, Arcos, Vintage. No idea when they were made, but they're from Chicago, so there's that. I was talking about books earlier. This is the New Modern Coin Magic hardcover Bobo. For any beginner getting into coins, this is what I started with. I had the soft-bound Modern Coin Magic Bobo, the Dover edition. This is better because I like hardcovers. The other one I will absolutely mention for any magician is Expert Card Technique. This is the third edition that has the Vernon and the daily edition. If you can get this edition, get it. The Vernon stuff in here is amazing. This should be in every working card man's library. I started with the Dover edition as well. Best Friend in Magic was like, check out the third one. It's got extra Vernon in it. And I picked it up, and I don't regret it. A little bit more than I would have liked to have spent on a book. But like I said, if you can afford it, do it. Spend the money, get the book. It's great. Thank you so much for tuning in on this episode of the MO Sessions. It was quick, kind of all over the place. I do have some interviews lined up with some great people. I think the first one I'm going to do is a great musician. It's a podcast about music now. The first magician I'll have on the podcast is a great magician out of the UK, young guy. He was an original listener to the podcast. I'm very excited to sit down and talk with him about all things magic. Hope that's not trademarked, but all things magic and maybe some non-magic stuff, because he's also doing some really interesting work in the copywriting space. I thought that was, I don't know if he's still doing that, but I thought it was interesting that he was. What else can I tell you? I'm on a social media break. It's almost been a week. That's been really interesting. So I've kind of gone rogue, kind of gone quiet. Allows me to focus more here. The next episode I have coming up, I'll be talking about some Vernon stuff. I'm really excited to get into that. And I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the MO Sessions. Thank you so much for being here.